You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
And welcome to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that covers news and events happening in the world of Lucha Libre, talking Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbase, Speaker, Google Play, and more. And don't forget our streaming partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. And let me bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am great. So great, in fact. I got to bring in the third member of this trio's team, and that's who?
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 Who? It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Yeah. You see, Dusty, she doesn't forget to do it.
Yeah, I forgot.
No, I think I added an extra one, but that was more for the suspense.
No, last week. When it was just Brendan and I forgot. I just introduced him.
Which
I realized it like immediately afterwards.
I wasn't going to call you out on it until you said something on air.
I mean, it's not the same way when it's just you two. Like, I can get why, you may have the more informal introductions there. But hey, alas, we are all back together. Still in early 2023. Can you say Happy New Year still? Is it like past that time?
The Chinese New Year isn't until the 23rd, so.
Yeah. Very good point. Valid point. Very good point. Well, still then, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you've been enjoying the early parts of 2023. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go ahead and listen to our end-of-year awards for 2022. All our nominations and our winners episodes are both posted, so you can listen to everyone that we nominated and ended up awarding the big honors to in the year of 2022, including Rising Star, Trios of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Luchador of the Year, and of course Match of the Year, and the Cookie Sheet Award. The infamous Sheet Award made its return in this year's award. So if you want to know who were our big winners, go ahead and check out our episodes. They're all posted on luchacentral.com, as well as the Lucha Central YouTube page, all of our streaming partner pages, including thechairshot.com. But that was then. This is now. We're going to be going into, I guess it's called the present and the future. We are back to our regularly formatted show. And so let's kick this off with News of the Week with Brendan.
Hey, so we are doing News of the Week. A lot of the news of this week was not about Lucha, so it's going to be pretty brief. If you guys know, we've been talking about it. The WWE is just doing crazy stuff. But so far it hasn't impacted luchadors, so we're not going to talk too much about it until they move into the world of, move past the world of speculation. The big news in Lucha this week seems to have been the passing of Black Warrior. We are just going to do a quick reach out to his family. Hopefully they are all happy and well at this point in time. I know it's always tough to lose a family member, but we've that was news that we didn't have a lot more to add. If you want to read up on the history of Black Warrior, Lucha Blog has done a very good job of detailing him over there. And then just the one other one for those of you out there that want to see more Lucha. We have Big Lucha's and Galli's crossover event is now on Pro Wrestling TV for a scant $10. So Galli, as we've detailed on the program many times, is a Lucha-based promotion on this side of the border. And Big Lucha is Bandito's promotion, and they did a show, they recorded it. Now you can finally see all of this stuff for mere $10 on Pro Wrestling TV, which is a good alternative to get a lot of channels for wrestling. You will see a lot of Lucha stars on there as well. I know we talk about Fight a lot, but Pro Wrestling TV also a good option. That's my news of the week. Because we were talking about Big Lucha, I'm just going to roll right into the indie roundup here, where Big Lucha had a match. They had 6 matches. I'm going to kind of go, the first one was a nice opening match with the students. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. And then the second match was, again, more young guys, but of interest to especially me on this one was Jack Evans came out and offered some of the members of this to join his faction, Los Locos Evans. So I don't know how that's going to play out because they didn't put the T-shirt on, to use the old NWO reference, but we did. He is actively recruiting young guys, and we know more about what Jack Evans is doing right now for work. Then we had Bandito and Flamita against Cometa Maya and Radioactivo, with Bandito and Flamita getting the win on that. And then our fourth match, there was, as I can't read my own notes because that's how I roll today. It doesn't help to be able to read it. IKU. I don't know how he says that. Iku. Probably. Jack Evans and Vengador against Galeno Del Mal, Gravity, and Ray Orus. The Jack Evans trio got the win on that one. And next action we had El Potro de Oro, Mr. Win, and Ecstasis Elemental Fornio, Action Jackson.
Right down here. There's an apartment down here? There is. A private entrance.
Sorry about that. And then El Potro de Oro got the win for the golden ticket. My understanding is that's something like a Money in the Bank sort of situation. And lastly, the really big news that came out of this one, you might have heard it already, but Emperador Azteca beat El Bandito for the Big Lucha World Championship. And this is kind of where I was going to invite a little bit of conversation here, because those of you who listened to the end of the year show heard we were talking a lot about Bandito. He was in the running for Luchador of the Year. He was talked about in some of the big matches of the year. This is kind of implying to me and a lot of people that he's planning on not being in Mexico as much and at his own gym as much in the coming year if he's not keeping the belt on himself. I mean, Emperador Azteca is a good wrestler, but it's not the big surprising win of somebody who is getting a big push. It's kind of more, again, in my opinion, putting on a guy who's going to be solid and put out good matches while Bandito is away. Dusty or Miranda, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I kind of agree. It's not like a groundbreaking name. And he's not, I mean, he's a big name, but he's not such a big name that it's like, oh my gosh, he's going to be the next guy to take this over long term.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have that feel. But at the same time, it feels like he was big enough of a name that it doesn't give the rub to a guy further down that would have been kind of star status by winning.
Yeah.
And
moved
so
further up. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it just feels like a placeholder. I mean, no offense to Emperador Azteca.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, one, we can kind of suspect, that, like you mentioned, Brendan, he's not going to be spending as much time at the gym or with that promotion. But maybe it also means there's still uncertainty about what that means. The fact that maybe this is a transitional champion until they figure something out, or maybe champion until, Bandito in particular knows a little bit more about his schedule, or, also the fact that at Big Lucha, and you can attest to this a little bit more, Brendan, what big stars have they kind of produced so far? Maybe it's just more out of necessity that Bandito has been the big name, that they haven't quite built anyone up yet to the point where anybody who got that belt could have been, be seen in this.
And that's the other thing that can be said about this is a more beatable champion. As again, I don't want to make it sound like we're talking down of, because Emperador Azteca is a great talent.
Yeah.
And him main eventing the card is a good thing, but he's not Bandito. He's not internationally known. He's not. He doesn't do hundreds of dollars a night in merch or any of that. And his name's not on the gym, right? Like this. But that means that now there can be drama and storyline around the heavyweight championship. So it may not mean that Bandito's not going anywhere. It just may mean that he wants to have more actual storyline, or give more of these young guys the opportunity to rise up to the challenge of being in a main event match.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
But I am always looking forward to him coming to the States. I have it on good authority that he has a very functional working visa and can do whatever he needs to, whenever he needs to. So, we will be seeing him up north somewhere this year, I guarantee.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my indie roundup for the week. As always, I'm gonna give the pitch now that we're back to our normal format. I want to hear. I mean, this comes off as kind of a big news story as well, but I want to hear about the smaller matches too. We've got guys out here in the Pacific Northwest that have been doing small matches for promotions that are in Idaho or in Eastern Oregon and places that nobody would be able to find on a map that don't live out here. And I still am getting results from some of these guys and trying to sneak them into the show as much as I can. So don't think I'm gonna leave out your independent promotion stuff. If you're wrestling a luchador, if there's a luchador on the show, if it's an all lucha promotion out of Texas or California, I really want to hear about you. Miranda's going to be going back down to California for some matches down there. We will be covering lots on the indie roundup to come, and I want to make sure that your program is added to it too.
Yeah, speaking of a change that occurred just recently was Masked Republic's own Lucha Libre Mexicana has had a show change. That was originally scheduled to be held at the Agua Caliente Casino in Cathedral City this past Saturday. However, due to the crazy weather that's happening throughout California, and that is primarily an outdoor event, the event has changed. So the new date is Saturday, January 28th at the Agua Caliente Casinos at Cathedral City. You're still scheduled to appear, of course, the legendary Psychosis, Archangel Divino, and Ultimo Maldido, Tirables Jr., Susie Love, and a lot more talent still scheduled to appear. So make sure to visit Masked Republic on social media for more information. But Lucha Libre Mexicana, sponsored by Masked Republic, the new show date is Saturday, January 28th. Still going to be at the Agua Caliente Casino. Tickets that were previously purchased will still be honored and transferred for that show. And you can reach out to Agua Caliente Casinos directly for more information about tickets. But Masked Republic's still rolling on, rain or shine, but better than shine. Better for it to be in the
better and shine.
Better and shine. Yes.
Yeah. I've been to a few outdoor lucha shows in the rain, and they're still fun, but they're nowhere near as fun as when they aren't wet and everything's slippery. It's pretty terrifying at times.
Yeah, it's just not fun, especially for the community of Cathedral City. They're just a wonderful crowd, and I want them to be able to enjoy their time. So make sure, if you have not already, to reach out to Cathedral City, to Agua Caliente Casinos for information on tickets. If you already got your tickets for the 14th, they still will be honored at the 28th. And speaking of the night before, January 27th, PCW Ultra will be celebrating their 7th anniversary show. That's going to be held in the PCW arena in Wilmington, California. Already announced for this event, your new PCW Ultra champion, Jacob Fatu, will be facing Black Taurus. Viva Van is going to be defending the Ultra Women's Championship against Masha Slamovich. As far as the specialty meet and greet, wrestler that will be in attendance, Chavo Guerrero Jr. will be at the meet and greet earlier in the show. So that's going to be a big treat for anyone who does go to the meet and greets. Such a great opportunity to meet all of the wrestlers and, of course, kind of the headliner for the meet and greet. Jay Vidal is going to be defending the Ultralight Championship against Davey Richards. Border Patrol, for anyone who's been to a Pro Wrestling Revolution show, they will be making an appearance facing the Gates of Agony.
Oh, wow.
Ring of Honor's Gates of Agony, yes.
Wow, that's a big match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's a lot of big boys in the ring, too.
Yeah. Hossy.
So, again, tickets are still available. You can visit PCW Ultra, on social media and PCWUltra.com. Just coming up now, gonna be soon, a week away, for all of these matches and more. So yeah, a double banger weekend, in the Southern California area between PCW Ultra and Lucha Libre Mexicana.
Yeah. Real quick too, I mentioned many luchadors that had appeared during the AEW run up here in the Pacific Northwest between Washington and Oregon. We did not mention Viva Van, and you reminded me of that when you mentioned her on the card. She had a fantastic match on Dark, so more reasons to go check her out there. Maybe get yourself primed for that PCW Ultra match.
Yes, like Brendan said, if you're a pro wrestling fan, promotion, wrestler, photographer, we would love to hear more from you and from your promotions wherever you are. So we're going to be sharing our info at the very end of the episode, so stay tuned, but feel free to reach out to us so that way we can share your promotion or your matches information on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. Up next, though, you know what time it is. We're going to kick it to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass Mats and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
Thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. So we got into the meat of the news this week. We are going to start off with CMLL.
Again, just a real quick update, and as always, I'm looking for feedback on this. There's so much CMLL we could do. Sometimes I overcut, and sometimes I talk too long, so, let me know. But I really wanted to go over the fact that we had some interesting things going on with Rocky Romero in particular in CMLL. They had a recent event where they were having I can't remember the terminology for it at the moment. It's a mixed match where you have a Rudo and a Technico on a tag team. And Rocky Romero was paired with Volador Jr. And then this was there was a match. There was a match earlier in the evening. We as Lucha Blog phrased it, it's kind of a thing in CMLL where the babyface will pick up the microphone and demand one more fall, as opposed to the 5 more minutes chance that we in the early territories days would do. And it actually happened. They got it, but Rocky Romero kinda kicked Volador Jr. in the junk.
Gotta hate when that happens.
Yeah, me too. It's always funny when it's somebody else. So like, I don't know. It's not that I hate when it happens. I hate when it happens to me.
But so after the match, Rocky Romero demanded an NWA welterweight championship, which they're gonna have next week. And Rob Viper and Lucha Blog are speculating that's going to lead to an eventual Apuestas match. So just kind of interesting news. I'll keep my eye on the story. To the best of my knowledge, Rocky Romero is not actually signed by CMLL, but I think he's probably getting a little more of a push right now, as Fantastica Mania is right around the corner, and that's kind of his baby. So,
well, yeah, he's really the bridge between New Japan and the rest of the world. He got a lot of credit for the Forbidden Door thing. That he was really essential in setting that up with Tony Khan, and so I mean, this is kind of his role, basically, is go out there and put everybody over and then get them to come to Japan. And it's exciting to see him get such a marquee spot now. He's really been a fantastic talent for a long time, but it feels like in the last year you've heard more about Rocky Romero than you had for a long time.
Certainly the previous couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, since the pandemic, yeah.
But he's come out and just, like you said, just blazing a trail there. That's what I've got for CMLL this week. Like I said, I'll keep an eye on the situation with Rocky Romero and Volador. They are doing a couple of other events that are going to be hopefully big news coming out of it, but we'll see. Stay tuned to Lucha Central for the updates on CMLL.
Thank you, Brendan. Up next, an assortment of news from AAA, including things that have just come out pretty recently, pretty fresh news.
Yeah, well, today, as of recording time, but yeah, today AAA held a press conference that kind of lined out what they were going to do for 2023, their thing for the whole year. They streamed it live on YouTube. It was a public thing, but it also ties in like all their advertisers and people that are, kind of associated with AAA, or maybe that they're trying to court into doing business and advertising with AAA. We've seen a lot more of that in the last year, where they kind of had the shoes and different stuff going on. Looks like they'll have a few new things this year. But first thing, not new at all, much like last year, we're going to have 3 nights of Triple Mania. Again, it will be in Monterrey, Tijuana, and Mexico City. First up, on April the 16th, we have Triple Mania Chapter 1 in Monterrey. That's at a baseball stadium. We have Triple Mania Night 2 on June the 17th in Tijuana. And we have Triple Mania Night 3, Chapter 3 on August the 12th in Mexico City at Arena Ciudad de Mexico. That's kind of the home for Triple Mania in Mexico City. So that's where you would expect to see it. Great things going on there. Very much like last year where they had a tournament. This year they're also having a tournament, apparently building to an Apuestas match. It's also built around the loser, but this is a tag team tournament. And basically each team that loses advances to the next Triple Mania, and then at the final match, the main event of Triple Mania Chapter 3, the teams will have an Apuestas match against each other. The 4 teams are Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis. Pagano and Rush. Yeah, I know. Blue Demon and DMT Azul, and Pentagon Jr. with Alberto El Patron. Some very interesting teams there, and each team, as you may have guessed from the kind of readout, they're all rivals. And very interesting things going on. Monterrey is the first round. Apparently it will be Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis versus Pagano and Rush, and then Penta and Alberto versus Blue Demon and DMT Azul. Obviously there's a lot of, recent story and going on between Psycho Clown, Sam Adonis. This is really one of those, how can they exist? Tag team tournaments. And so it'll be interesting. The real animosity, or behind the scenes animosity, I guess, would be between Blue Demon and DMT Azul. But DMT Azul was originally created to basically be a Blue Demon ripoff. That was kind of when he was Diamante Azul, and that was kind of his whole thing, was pretending to be Blue Demon for CMLL, and
outright confusing people who thought they actually saw.
Yeah. People that saw him thought they had seen Blue Demon, Like, it wasn't that they advertised him as Blue Demon, but they did everything they possibly could to make you think he was Blue Demon. And so Blue Demon Jr. obviously was pretty pissed off about this. And there has been bad blood between them for over a decade. Like, it's crazy. And so to see them on a tag team working together is just wild. That feels like the natural Apuestas build, but at the same time, hair versus mask or something between Sam and Psycho Clown is money. We've seen Psycho Clown, you know, I honestly think Psycho Clown versus Dr. Wagner Jr. is the most memorable Apuestas match of this millennium, this century, this whatever. I mean, like the last 20 years.
Recent history.
Recent history. I mean, maybe it was because of my level of investment. I was deeply invested in that match. And I thought there was no way Dr. Wagner was going to lose that match.
Same with me. And I was so mad when he did. I still am to this day. That's why So I'm just going to call the shot right now. Sam Adonis is going to either hit Psycho Clown with a cookie sheet or kick him in the junk. They're going to get disqualified in the first round, and they will advance to the next one.
I don't think they could go the distance.
And
maybe that's the thing. I mean, the concept is fascinating in which you have two rivals on a team, and ultimately they need to make it to the final so that they could have their one-on-one Apuestas match. And so can they contain themselves? Can they, work together just long enough to be able to face each other in the ring?
Because it is also building to an Apuestas match. So, you have to be a special kind of crazy to throw the match and to put you into an Apuestas match where you could wind up losing your whole identity. Like, I see DMT Azul and Blue Demon attempting to get along, as opposed to Sam Adonis, who's not. Like, and it's also interesting to me that with DMT Azul and Sam Adonis in it, you have two members of La Empresa in this. Mm-hmm. So are they going to have a kind of a faction plan for this? Maybe
good point.
An alliance would benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really interesting. The stories that are into it are interesting. The motivation and the issues between each tag team are different. So you've got a lot of different, like, storyline psychology going into it. There's a lot of different approaches. Everybody's approaching this in a different way. And it's one of the most interesting things AAA's done in a while, in my opinion.
Since the last Ruleta de la Muerta.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, the last time I felt this hooked was when they started the last Apuestas match tournament, and it gives you time to get into it. And I'm really excited about this. There's a lot of star power in this, and there's also Alberto besides all the star power, and a lot of good things going on. So I'm excited about that. Triple Mania is always a big deal. They're kind of back on their regular pre-COVID schedule. It looks like we're still going to see the, Verano de Escándalo usually in July or September. Looks like we're still going to see Heroes Immortales. The usuals that we're used to seeing. But it looks like 3 nights of Triple Mania are going to be the standard going forward, likely with Monterrey, Tijuana, and Mexico City being the stops. Yeah. And, I mean, it's exciting. It helps make it more predictable. I know there was some chatter of a Lucha Central trip to one of the Triple Manias, and so looking forward to that if it happens, and makes it a little more predictable for that. Big, exciting things. And speaking of big, exciting things and things that AAA loves to do, they are bringing back the Lucha Libre World Cup for the first time in 6 years.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I was so invested in the Lucha Libre World Cup, and it's just so fun. They haven't had it since 2017. And what's also really fun this year is that before it was always sponsored by a beer company. This year it's sponsored by a company called Charlie, and they make like soccer jerseys and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they made the Triple Mania jerseys that we got to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do good work. Yeah.
They do incredible work, and them sponsoring the Lucha Libre World Cup, there is no way we're not getting Lucha Libre World Cup jerseys. And
You got to.
I've got to have one.
They did a bang up job with the last Lucha jerseys they did. So yeah, I regret letting those go by. I'm not gonna let this go by, especially
me either.
with the World Cup, because then I can buy my USA shirt and represent and not feel like I'm a poser.
Yeah, it's the jingoistic thing. It's Team USA and Lucha Libre. It's different.
Yeah.
This Lucha Libre World Cup is going to happen in Guadalajara on March the 19th at the Guadalajara Baseball Stadium. There's going to be a men's tournament and a women's tournament, which is, kind of interesting and exciting. The women's tournament is smaller. It's only going to have 4 teams, a Mexico team, United States team, a Japan team, and a rest of the world team. No teams have been announced yet, but I think it's very fair to say we're going to see Taya on one of these teams. But where do we see her? Mexico, rest of the world? I mean, she's Canadian. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of possibility there, so it opens up an interesting situation for her. Go ahead.
She'd been in the Women's World Cup before, but was she in Team Mexico one of the 2 years she was in it? I don't remember, because she was definitely rest of the world when she came down with Johnny Mundo.
Yeah. I remember, because it was Team Mundo at that point, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. We don't, it's been a while back. I would also like to point out to listeners, because there are listeners that have come into Lucha Libre.
She was Team Canada in 2016.
Oh, yeah, with Casey Spinelli.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually had a whole Team Canada. And those of you who don't know, Casey Spinelli is from Vancouver. That's the only reason that she stuck into my head. That she's not, to the best of my knowledge, she's not a lucha trained. She's classic American wrestling trained. But I did want to point out that for a lot of people who come in since then, the original one. So if the last one was in 2017, you said 3 years before that, the first one was this big global phenomenon that got a lot of eyes onto lucha for the first time. Like, that was the thing I consistently heard is I watched the World Cup for the first time. It was my first time doing lucha. So, if you've come in since then and haven't gone back, the first 2 in particular are spectacular and really a lot of emotional storytelling. It showcases all of the Lucha Libre styles. It makes everybody look like either a big star or a big villain. Like Team USA was the big villains both those years, and it was worth it. I mean, it really was. So, and I believe AAA has both of those up on their YouTube channel, which is once again available in the United States. It's still surreal to me that I have to check every once in a while, but.
Yeah, that is true. You do have to keep an eye on it.
And if not, we can probably send you some links to Cubs fans or somebody else's special reserve. So, but yeah, I'm so excited about the World Cup. Miranda, we've been talking. Did you watch the original World Cups? And if not, do you want to go watch them now, or if so?
I didn't watch the original ones, but I've heard about it. So, it's really exciting to see that come back. And, to me, I'm coming in with a fresh perspective, fresh pair of eyes. So, I'm keeping a very open mind to it. But I think, again, it's something very cool that, again, we're already on this, high off of the actual World Cup, and for them to utilize it. I mean, think about other things too, that travel is now happening. It makes it so much easier to bring in so many different people from all over the world. So I think the timing of it is great.
And Guadalajara is a heck of a destination. Like,
Yeah.
You're not going to the suburbs of Mexico City. You're going to a beautiful area of Mexico. So the wrestlers get a mini vacation. Fans might be more likely to fly in from around the world for this sort of thing because, Guadalajara. They write songs about Guadalajara, you guys.
It's exciting, and like we've said, the World Cup format is exciting. It is a trios format. The only one team has been announced so far. The teams have been announced, but only the members of one team have been announced, I guess. But the teams are Team United Kingdom, Team Japan, Team Latin America, which is basically South America and Puerto Rico, Team Canada, Team United States, Team Rest of the World, Team Mexico AAA, and Team Mexico Nacion Lucha Libre / AAA, which has its members announced: El del Vikingo, Psycho Clown, and Alberto El Patron.
So they've got a two-man team.
Yeah, basically.
So far.
2 stars and some dude named Alberto.
And we're joking a bit about it. We've talked a bit about the fact that Alberto's response. Lucha Blog even talked about this too. I'm quoting him a lot this week. I apologize. I know he hates it when we do that. The response to him in Mexico is very different than the rest of the world. There's a lot of people to whom he's still the face of Mexican wrestling, and they don't know the rest of the nonsense that has gone on in his life. So it'll be very interesting to see what the crowd reaction to him is like at the Triple Manias and at the Lucha Libre World Cup. They are taking it's a calculated gamble, but it's an interesting one too, just by announcing him on the card.
And Lucha Blog touched on this. Outside of all his other issues and the things that go along with having Alberto, if you meet him in person, he is very charismatic and so charming. My son and I met him at a SmackDown taping, 2010. We just saw him kind of walking as we were in the parking lot. And we hollered out to him. He came over, signed an autograph, walked us over, showed us the Rolls Royce that he was going to ride out on that night, that he was going to come out backstage. So nice, so charismatic. And after that, I was like, oh, this Alberto guy, like, he is so cool. And then you find out what he's really like, and it's so disappointing. But beyond that, he's not, like, one-on-one, his charisma, and I'm glad it's not just me. I always felt like it was just me, that somehow I was just starstruck by him, until Lucha Blog did mention that in one-on-one situations, he's very charismatic, but somehow he cannot capitalize on that in front of a crowd. Like, you just don't get that charisma from Alberto that you have in a one-on-one setting. And so I just don't know that he's going to be. He was the leader of the Dream Team back at the original Lucha Libre World Cup. And
nobody remembers him when you talk about that Dream
No, they
Team.
Remember Rey Mysterio.
Yep.
That's all people remember. And can you imagine you have Rey Mysterio on your team and you make Alberto the captain? Like,
yeah. Well, that was the only way he was going to get top billing, because you had Rey Mysterio and Mystices on that team.
Yeah. Such a good show. I highly recommend everybody go check out that 2015 Lucha Libre World Cup.
Oh, so good.
I was so invested in that, and I still think about it often, especially with Johnny Mundo and Brian Cage. Like, that was, if you like Brian Cage, you've got to see the 2015 World Cup.
Yeah.
And if you want to see AAA, you might have to go to YouTube, because one place they will not be is WrestleMania weekend. They didn't talk about it at all on their press conference today. Like, not at all. Nothing has been mentioned. If you remember, there was this kind of Vikingo rule where you couldn't show Vikingo on your live streaming service. You couldn't record the match and show it on YouTube, because AAA was supposed to have this WrestleMania weekend show in Los Angeles, and they wanted the rub of the first streamed Vikingo match. Well, in typical AAA fashion, it looks like that WrestleMania weekend show in Los Angeles is not happening. With everything they did talk about today, the fact that they did not talk about the WrestleMania show is very telling. And so it's very, very unlikely the Los Angeles show isn't happening. I don't know if it was a funding issue. A lot of guys, thanks to Masked Republic, have got visas now to come over here, so they could have put together a show. I don't believe it was a visa issue. I could see sponsorship being an issue. I could see just in general the crowded nature of WrestleMania weekend. How do you stand out amongst all the shows?
That is a conversation that I had with people who make wrestling for a living. Was when they were talking about whether they were going to be at WrestleMania weekend or not. It's like, well, it's so hard, especially when you've got two major indie promotions that are doing multi-night events, so you can just buy one ticket and see, just go to one place, right? Like it's extra hard to stand out. Sorry, keep going.
Well, and especially in Los Angeles, where like PWG has such a stronghold in that kind of lucha hybrid style.
GCW's already announced their whole lineup for that weekend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a very saturated market when you get there. It's also a challenge, just like I think in other areas. I think Dallas had this issue where you have, you're a bit spread out as well, where you could find a venue, but is it, worth the drive, especially even if something is just a few miles away with traffic and everything, that could be, an issue. So I've heard the same from, individuals who work with promotions, who have promotions, about weighing the options of, is it worth to put something together for WrestleMania weekend? And it just sounds like AAA's focus is really going to be more on their, upcoming shows, really heading into the summer and the rest of the year.
Well, and let's keep in mind that the Phoenix show was relatively last minute for them.
Yeah.
So it may, that's not saying that they're going to try and do a last minute thing on WrestleMania weekend, but we may see them in the States this year. It just may not be something that they are able to talk about yet.
Yeah. And we know they allegedly have signed Cain Velasquez for more dates. And so it makes sense that they would plan American shows, because there's no way he gets to go to Mexico under the conditions of his release.
No, he is not coming to Triple Mania.
He is 100% staying in that part of the country. And so if they want to have Kane, and they have signed him for these dates, like it's been reported, they're going to have some American shows planned. But like we've mentioned, I think it's smarter for them to not do WrestleMania weekend and do a weekend when they can stand out. Your fans that would travel for WrestleMania are not necessarily the fans that would show out for a Lucha show or a AAA show.
So, and that was true when I was at the SummerSlam weekend in Las Vegas. There was definitely much smaller crowds when I went to the Lucha exclusive shows versus the shows where a luchador was performing.
So I think it's a smarter idea for them to wait. I think Los Angeles is still going to be a smart destination for them. You have a huge Latino population there that, know Lucha, understand Lucha, and if you're wanting to film something or do a live show on Fight or whatever, that's the type of crowd. I mean, think of how hot the crowds were for Lucha Underground. And you could attract literally the same audience nearly. So I think Los Angeles probably will happen. I just think it's a smart decision on AAA's part not to focus on WrestleMania weekend. And then we also forget that's right at the end of March, beginning of April. And we also have that first chapter of Triple Mania, April 12th. So a lot of interesting things going on there. And a lot is still kind of up in the air with everything. A couple of years ago, last year I believe it was, AAA mentioned that they were going to go to Tokyo, or to Japan at least, that they were going to go to Colombia, that they were going to, come to America. They really only made it to America. They did not go to Colombia or Japan. And so I think it's also likely we could see Colombia or Japan show up in their itinerary this year. A lot of interesting things going on for AAA. It feels like they've got a lot of momentum behind them. It felt like they kind of made a misstep to begin with when they severed that alliance with AEW and kind of chased the WWE thing with Vince McMahon coming into power and everything that's tied up with that, the possibility that the Khans might make a bid to buy WWE. Everything is evolving. None of it sounded good for AAA, but their own internal momentum now after the press conference does sound good.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a big plan. One of the biggest problems for AAA is that they don't map things out in advance. They don't have a roadmap or a story that they want to tell, and so you just get a lot of cool matches and then a Triple Mania with some vague stories that played out over social media. But seeing them plan this out this far in advance, it's just the 17th of January as they had the press conference, and they've already laid out the teams, when it's going to happen, when the final is. So all of that's laid out. We know that. And that gives them time to build us something that we can invest in and be excited about. And that makes me more excited for AAA than I have been since, like, the last tournament, as we mentioned, the Ruleta de la Muerta. So very exciting things happening for AAA. I'm sure we will have more news on AAA next week. If anything pops up in between, it will always be on luchacentral.com, and we will always have it here on the podcast.
I did have one last thought because
you were
mentioning it. We may, because of this roadmap and because of things like that, we may see hints of where they want to go when you're looking at, especially the World Cup, like you mentioned, going to Central America, and there's a Central American team this year. So depending on who shows up,
and a Japanese team,
we might see some hints of what their plans are for that expansion, even though it's not on the roadmap we got. They may be building to it, may be waiting for that to be their big launching point for it. So just ideas that pop into my head, like the promoter part of my brain kicked in when you were talking about that stuff.
Yeah, it's very exciting. There's a lot of like the Japanese women's team, like a Joshi, bringing Joshi in to wrestle some of the luchadores, sending luchadores to Japan. Like, I find that idea very exciting.
Yeah.
And going to be some hard hitting wrestling.
Yeah, all around. Yeah.
Just so much promise for AAA right now. I feel completely different about them this evening than I did this morning. Like, what
That's it. That's very fair.
Yeah, it's exciting. I was literally buzzing about it.
Yeah, and Brendan sent a message to the group, and I was like, wonder what's going on. I was at work when I got it, so I couldn't really check it, but I was very casually looking up Lucha Blog, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh man, I kept getting more and more excited as I was reading it, and like, it really, it's exciting news, and exciting things going on. I watched the press conference this afternoon, and you could, it feels electric. It just feels like AAA's finally got it together this year. This could be the year that we see something special and truly see them transcend. Whenever AAA has a misstep, it's kind of like, oh, well, it's AAA. What do you expect? But if they could step out of that and grow out of that role into being major contenders internationally, they could easily, they've got some of the best luchadors in the world there. And so much going on. It feels like their global expansion is finally happening. A lot of promise, and I think AAA is going to be the most exciting company to watch this year in wrestling. I think WWE may be the most interesting with everything that's going on, but I think that AAA is going to have the most exciting trajectory of the year and finally deliver on what some of us have thought was coming for 20-something years now. And since the fall of WCW, it doesn't feel like Lucha has been this important or this exciting or this much going on in America. And we're watching history with a lot of this, and very cool.
Well, thank you so much, Dusty, for all of that exciting AAA news. We're going to be watching it very closely here on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, so make sure you stay tuned to future episodes. We are going to be wrapping things up with some MLW, Major League Wrestling news. We haven't talked about MLW in a hot minute, but some very interesting developments with MLW in just this week's show. And by this week, I technically mean last week's, which was their episode that aired on the 12th. The episode for this week hasn't aired yet, but if you want to watch last week's episode, you can find that on YouTube, is already available. But some pretty big developments. First off, we have some teasers from Cesar Duran about what his future is going to be like. Previously, Cesar Duran was the official matchmaker of MLW until he was fired for some mysterious instances that happened backstage that he was being blamed for. A series of wrestlers were getting attacked. Nobody knew why, but all signs pointed to Cesar Duran. So he was fired as official matchmaker. But now he is doing, well, what he does best, and he's putting back on the promoter hat. And so he announced that he is looking to take over MLW and start his own promotion, teasing, bringing back Azteca Lucha. Not so much Azteca Underground, you could see in the graphic it said Azteca Lucha. So, he is looking to really get back into that promoter role. And we had glimpses of that throughout the night. One of that was during a pretty comical segment where Hugo Savinovich awarded Cesar Duran with promoter of the year, matchmaker of the year, by giving him a very big pencil. And Cesar Duran goes into a pretty passionate rant about how nothing was given to him. He wasn't given anything by his father. He didn't wait for anyone. No one needed to die, for him to get into his role. That he, it was,
Whoa.
yeah, he went there.
I'm old.
And that he is going back to, what makes him the best in being a promoter. And the first person that he has signed was Taya Valkyrie, the MLW Women's Featherweight Champion, to his new promotion. And so it does look like now the MLW Women's Featherweight Championship is under the wing of Cesar Duran. There was announcements that he was going to announce a new member of his roster very soon. It could possibly be Johnny Morrison, Mundo Nitro Impact. One of the many aliases of John Morrison, of Johnny Mundo, since it was already announced that he would be making an appearance with MLW, or the other plethora of luchadors, in MLW that he could sign. One of them could be the new MLW middleweight champion, and that is Lince Dorado. A huge accomplishment for him, defeating Shun Skywalker in the opening bout of the night. And this was a really great match. Go ahead.
I want to preface this. This is Shun Skywalker, who we were talking about 2 years ago on the Indie Roundup. This guy is a legit luchador this is a huge opportunity. I'm sorry, keep going.
He represented Dragon Gate and really talked more about the Dragon Gate style, was a bit more technical, a little bit more hard-hitting, not so much lucha. In the commentary for this match was Joe Dabrowski, trying to pronounce, not remember his name. Oh my gosh, why is it slipping from he was the commentator for Lucha Underground.
Oh.
Matt Striker.
Matt Striker, yes. So Joe Dabrowski and Matt Striker were on commentary for this match, and that really amplified the vibe of this entire match. But there was constantly this visual and commentary about Shun really, playing a chess match with Lince. There was one moment where Lince was kind of duped by Skywalker trying to do a standing moonsault. Lince Dorado put his knees up And then Shun took that and turned around and locked him in a cloverleaf. And then there was another instance, a little bit later on the match where Lince did a 619. Shun ducked from that and then was able to grab his legs and do kind of a double underhook power bomb. So there was Shun was always a step further. And even with the speed of Lince, he seemed to always have, be kind of 2 steps ahead of Lince, which is very rare for Lince for someone to be that ahead of him. But in Lince Dorado fashion, he was able to land that shooting star press for the win and become the new MLW World Middleweight Champion. Which overall the consensus online seems to be very positive that this is a great direction for MLW, for the middleweight division. It's great for Lince to hold a singles title, and this could be a way, for him to be able to have a bit more flash on his own. We know he's so skilled in the ring, but now we're able to see him with some gold.
He'll look good with that robe.
Yeah, the robe is an awesome choice for Lince.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, like, when you think of robes, you generally think of Ric Flair, but it's much more like Intercontinental Playboy than Ric Flair. Like, it's very cool.
Well, I think in almost, Lince has kind of played off the most interesting luchador in the world. I think that Ric Flair's robes were extravagant and decadent, and but Lince is a little bit more subdued, but very playboy, very laid back, but very stylish. So I feel like the next time we see him, when he takes off that robe, we're gonna see that huge MLW Middleweight Championship belt right around his waist.
Yep, and it's gonna look great. Promising it already.
It's going to look great. Even commentary played up, Lince's friendship with Microman and how they had a feeling Microman was cheering Lince on in the back. So, it was a great opening match, just a really great match in general to showcase, 2 wrestlers who, are both very talented and ultimately can work each other's styles very well. But it was, in this case, a way to really highlight Shun's, technical ability and forethought, and putting Lince in a spot where, again, it's very rare for someone to outpace him, and to be a few steps ahead of him. But, in this reminded me a bit about when they talked about his strength, very similar to a Bandito, someone who is deceptively strong. Yeah. And that he was able to utilize. And also made me think of Dusty whenever he did a shooting star press.
He does. He's got the best shooting star press in all of wrestling.
You heard it here.
I'm not going to argue with my teammate on that one.
So once Lince got up to the ramp, and another thing they talked about too, the last time, back in 2017, he talked about, an injury, and commentary talked about this too, an injury that he suffered that almost ended his career there. So to come full circle back at the 2300 arena and be winning gold is huge, for him. Cesar Duran walked out with a bottle of champagne. Lince took a drink, and Cesar Duran kind of walked him out, saying they had a lot to talk about. So, in general, it sounds like Cesar Duran is now collecting a variety of wrestlers for as Tekka Lucha.
Yep. Which leads me to my prediction. Just in the time since you suggested Johnny might show up, it's going to be Johnny Azteca.
Ooh, Johnny Azteca.
Yeah, I like that.
You heard it here first, folks. If he comes out with that, I nailed that. I didn't invent it, but that's my prediction.
Yeah. And we had high hopes once it was announced that MLW was adopting the Lucha Underground format. With bringing in Cesar Duran, with a lot of the teasers that they had, we had a lot of high hopes last year. That really hasn't come to fruition. for whatever reason, whether the ideas just didn't come sorting out. I know towards the end of the year, MLW really wasn't able to, have as many live shows as they wanted. Even maybe the ability to go to Mexico or do a lot of that pre-tape didn't come about. The main thing, too, is that there has to be a story that strings along, and there really wasn't. There was at one point with Cesar Duran and, Hammerstone and Richard Holiday. There was some story there. But pretty much once Richard Holiday was beat and Hammerstone retained, there really hasn't been much left for Cesar Duran to do. No big nemesis, no big storyline, nobody to face. And so maybe we'll see a tie-in to the mystery of who's been attacking all these wrestlers. Who knows if this is just a blank slate, and maybe they just go to what I think as fans we've just been wanting is, however close they can get to Lucha Underground as they can get within reason.
Right. No, let's be honest here. We're talking about the fans, not within reason.
Well, within legal reason, I know there's some trademark, there's some things that they cannot legally do. Well, that's what I mean. I think within reason, I mean, why not? But I guess what I would say within legal boundaries, whatever they can legally do without getting slapped with a lawsuit.
Yes.
Some waves happening in MLW right now, with the lucha scene. Again, another overall just MLW is been a great promotion for Lucha Libre in 2022, and hope to see that grow in 2023. A great way to start off the year with Lince Dorado winning the MLW Middleweight Championship, and hope to see him in lots of great title defenses and matches. And very interested to see the direction that Cesar Duran is going to be taking, and if that means really making a run for bringing Azteca Lucha to the forefront as a actual promotion, as something that fans can sink their teeth into. The last thing I want to mention in MLW news is something that we talked about late last year, and that is MLW's partnership with Boss Fight Action Figures.
Yes.
And the pre-orders are now available. The first series of MLW action figures are now available for pre-order at Boss Fight Studio. The first set of figures include Alexander Hammerstone, Mads Kruger, Jacob Fatu, and Killer Cross. Each figure retails for $39.99. Additionally, you can get some great accessories, which if you have ever seen a Boss Fight Studio action figure, you know that their accessories are where it's at. You can get a championship belt pack featuring the World Heavyweight Championship, the World Featherweight Championship, for your Taya action figure that you already have, the National Openweight Championship, the World Tag Team Championships, and the Opera Cup, which is available all together in a pack for $24.99. So the first wave is slated to ship in later this fall. So again, the first 4 figures that are set to be released are Jacob Fatu, Alexander Hammerstone, Mads Kruger, and Killer Cross, as well as the championship belt pack, which you can get for $24.99. And if you have not seen a Boss Fight action figure, the attention to detail is crazy awesome.
Yeah, go watch the video of how they made the Lucha Bros, because they took the masks off to paint those guys, and then, so there's details on there that you will never see because the mask is glued on, but they put it in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I had shared this on social media, and someone was surprised to see, Killer Cross as part of that pack. And if you remember, for those of you who are listening, that this was announced back in the summertime, that this partnership was first announced. And then Killer Cross made his way back to the WWE very quickly.
Very suddenly.
very suddenly. So that was just something that came by and I don't want to say by happenstance, but that was not a part of the original plan, seemingly. So it's also a pretty interesting thing to have, Killer Kross, who's still, now part of the WWE roster, having his own action figure put out in this line with Boss Fight and MLW. The same kind of goes with Mads Kruger. It was announced, I believe, last week that his deal with MLW is now up. So of the active roster with figures, we see Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu. But this is the first set. So who knows other sets that are going to be coming down the line. I have a feeling we're going to get a Lince one. I have a feeling we just would have to have a Lince one with a robe.
They have such a good crossover value with the Legends of Lucha Libre line that they're also doing that I'm sure Eric over at the Boss Fight Studios would pitch for as many luchadors as possible.
Yeah. How do we get a Microman one? Do we send a petition for that? How do we get a Microman Boss Fight action figure?
So what they're going to do is they're going to release part of him in every other one. So you have to buy the whole set to get one.
Oh, that's genius.
That's genius. You build your own
I got a
Microman.
Jimmy Hart figure that way one time. You had to collect all 5 and then you could build Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
Out in the South, y'all.
That will be the Microman special. I get that. So, check out Boss Fight Studios, to pre-order your MLW action figures. They look great. Again, the level of detail in them is awesome. Also the accessories, just having all of those championship belts, and the Opera Cup as a cool accessory, is, that's fantastic. So, again, pre-orders are now available for the MLW Boss Fight action figures. We will keep you glued to all of the news happening with MLW as it comes along, especially future figure sets with Boss Fight action figures. Sounds like we'll get some more news down the pipeline in 2023. I said I would wrap things up, but I lied. I have one last thing I wanted to mention. And this was something that came in passing. So this past Friday, the 13th, Impact Wrestling had Hard to Kill, and we had the X Division Championship match. Champion Trey Miguel defended against Black Taurus. That match was originally scheduled for the main card, but it got moved to the pre-show. You can find the full match now on Impact Wrestling's YouTube page. So completely free, a full match between Trey Miguel and Black Taurus for the X Division Championship from Hard to Kill this past Friday. Definitely you want to check it out. I haven't been able to see the entire match, but these two men have been fighting for a good portion of 2022. Black Taurus has been a staple in the X Division, and so it looks like we're gonna get probably at least one more match between these two. But the X Division has always been one of my favorite divisions at all of pro wrestling, and Black Taurus has had such a perfect fit there. So
yes,
go ahead, check it out on Impact Wrestling's YouTube page, Black Taurus and Trey Miguel for the X Division Championship from Hard to Kill this past Friday. And that's what I just wanted to say. So, yes, that is something I want to say. Also, just a really cool entrance, with Crazy Steve introducing Black Taurus with the black lights and everything. A very rad entrance. I'm very much digging Decay. So, make sure to check out the whole thing. Impact Wrestling's YouTube page, completely free. 13 minutes. You won't regret it. And that's the end of the news for this week. Thank you all so much for listening to this week's show. It feels good to be back in this format with all of you. Don't forget to make sure to visit luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. But I can't really tell you enough about it, so I'm going to let Brendan do the honors. And Brendan, can you tell listeners all the things they can find on luchacentral.com?
Let's do it. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's definitely time to do it. luchacentral.com is your online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. You can find the best curated video content and original content that is not seen anywhere else. You can find Lucha Libre events that will be happening in your area, photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world, and it's a place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by the top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And here we go. On top of all of this, all this greatness, it's still free. Years later, free. luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
And don't forget that you can follow luchacentral.com on social media, at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at luchacentralcom on Twitter. You can go check out Lucha Central on YouTube, where you can find the archives of all of the episodes of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast in English and in Espanol, as well as other shows from the Lucha Central Podcast Network, interviews, matches, and exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Absolutely. I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. And then I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook, not on Twitter. Go ahead and bother Brendan if you're on Twitter.
It's not a bother.
It's not a bother, but still, just go ahead and hit him up on Twitter. Again, if you are an independent wrestler, promotion, fan, photographer, referee, whoever you may be, and you are working a Lucha Libre match, know of luchadors, work with the Lucha Libre promotion, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to feature you on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. We love to support independent wrestling throughout the United States and even abroad, even in Mexico. So just because we talk about the West Coast doesn't mean that we're biased to the West Coast. It kind of does, actually, now that I say that out loud. But
we have a little bit, just because two-thirds of us live out there. Well, Dusty, we're going to get some lucha shows in your area.
Yeah.
We would love to hear about Lucha Libre shows happening all over. So please feel free to reach out to us on social media. If you are listening to the show on your favorite podcast streaming platform like Google, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or just, Podbay, whatever it may be, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. You subscribe so that way you get a notification each and every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. You can leave us a 5-star review and leave us a rating and then leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show. Brendan's been asking, what do you want us to do with CMLL? Talk about it more? Talk about it less? What do you want? What are you doing? Tell us what you want. Tell us
I hope I don't sound like that.
No, that's just me. I sound like that. But yeah, so please reach out to us. We'd love to hear more from you. Thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all, and we'll be with you next week.